Well, welcome to the Top Gun Show. Today we have back on the show Eric Pearson. He's an experienced merchandising and category management executive in the B2B and B2C arenas. Eric currently serves as a category management leader at Michelin and previously was a divisional merchandising director at Office Depot. Among other industry contributions, he created an insight tool leveraging B2B customer segmentation data to identify over $1 billion in potential sales by customer by product line. Over the years, he's become a subject matter expert in developing people. Eric, welcome back on the show.
Steve, it's great to be back. Thank you so much for having me. It is kind of interesting. We both have moved since the last time I was on your show.
Yeah, you're in South Carolina now, right?
I am, and you're in Texas now.
That's right. Got to keep on the move, The creditors can't find us.
When are you going to change the backdrop? I expected maybe a little something more cattle oriented or southern oriented there.
Well, you know what? I may just do that when I edit it. So it's funny. Well, Eric, in our prior interview last summer, you told me you were passionate about AQ, or adaptability quotient. Please describe what that is.
Yes, I'll revisit that for a moment. AQ is something that I have become passionate about because I believe it's the number one most important skill in the marketplace today. With things changing the way they are, it's not about what you know and how smart you are. IQ, that's important, but it's not about that. Or even how emotionally intelligent you are, how empathetic you are, how well you play on a team, so to speak, your EQ. Now, don't get me wrong, these are both important. But when you think about how rapidly things are changing, that ability to adapt and thrive in such a rapidly changing environment, to me, is the number one most important skill to have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Why don't you talk a little bit about how the AQ, how does it affect the onboarding into a new job, especially during this pandemic that doesn't seem to go away?
Well, that's a great question, Steve, because honestly, it impacts both of us. We've both made changes during this time. And when you think about AQ, and I talked about it the last time we were together, there's really three elements to it. There's learnability, there's mindset, and there's working identity. And within working identity, the capability to change your working identity. And all three of those elements have come into play during my recent onboarding experience. And what I'd like to do is just real quickly kind of run through them and show you and tell you what that impact has been. And so I'll start with the learnability. The World Economic Forum defines learnability. Let me give you that definition. It's the desire and capacity to develop in-demand skills to be employable for the long term, which I think we'd all like to have. And so it really came to light for me going back to a project I was working on in my previous organization. I was working with one of our data scientists, and we were building this insight tool to help our merchant and our sales teams. And as we were bringing this thing to life, he looked at me and he said, to make this thing really optimized, we are pushing the limits of Excel. We really should be doing this in Power BI or Tableau. And for me, that was a revelation in terms of, I better go learn. I think I need to learn something new. I better go learn a new skill. And so I took that impetus and I signed up for an online course in Power BI and began to work my way through learning the platform. Well, fast forward, as I was interviewing for the job that I have now, the leader of our team said, our team really uses Power BI. Do you know how to use Power BI? And the fact that I had that revelation, the fact that I had learnability to go sign up for a class, take it, and learn it, I think mattered and helped in that whole interview process. And now I use it every day in my new role. And so that learnability key is super important.
That's great. That's great stuff, man. So I can imagine somebody's watching this saying, okay, I'm not very adaptable. I mean, all this stuff's happened in the world these days and stuff. I want to be more adaptable, but how do I do it?
You have to be willing to change, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And when I talked about those elements of AQ, I mentioned learnability, and I mentioned mindset, and I mentioned working identity. And we have a working identity, and I learned this in a book called Working Identity by Herminia Ibarra. I learned that we have in our work life, we have an identity based on what we know, what we do, how we do what we do. And to have really high AQ, we've got to be able to change that working identity. And quite frankly, for most people, that's terrifying. And for me, coming into a new organization, learning new systems, a new industry, developing new relationships, I had to make a decision of what I was going to prioritize my time. Was I going to dig into the systems and the data where I would be most comfortable and be able to answer questions and to learn quickly? Or was I going to go slow there and prioritize relationship development and strategic learning? And I made a decision to be comfortable being uncomfortable for a period of time, because I felt like if I made the relationships and I focused on strategic learning, then as I dug into the data and learned our systems, I would be able to add value much faster with a more enhanced perspective. And in retrospect, that was the right decision. I translate that to somebody saying, hey, how do I become more adaptable? It's that word uncomfortable, and becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable and doing something new, whether it's like I did, take an online class, take a pilot, maybe change that half hour of Netflix for a podcast a couple times a week, or volunteering for a project at work that's outside of your comfort zone, but then doing that uncomfortable thing until it becomes comfortable. A saying that has really been impactful for me over the last few years is, life begins at the end of your comfort zone.
That's great. Well put. Those are great tactics to put that strategy into action. Thank you very much. Now, I know you know that I'm going to ask this question because I always end the show with this, but tell the viewers a little known interesting fact about yourself, Eric.
You know, Steve, last weekend I rediscovered a passion. I went skiing for the first time in 10 years, and it evoked, that Christmas morning anticipation and excitement. And for me, it's, when I think about skiing, whether it's on the side of the mountain or behind a boat, if you want to see, Steve, the Christmas morning version of me, that's what you need to do. Put me on the side of a mountain or behind a boat with skis on my feet.
Well, next time we're going to put a GoPro, we're going to strap that on your forehead and see what that looks like. Eric, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. It's awesome to be here again.
Thank you. And thanks for watching, everybody.